Somewhere in America right now, there is a small brown coin sitting in a jar, a drawer, or the pocket of an old coat, quietly daring its owner to notice it. It looks ordinary, boring, even. Abraham Lincoln stares forward, just like he has for decades. And yet, if this coin is what a handful of experts believe it could be, it may be worth more than most luxury homes, more than a fleet of sports cars, more than a lifetime of 9-to-5 paychecks combined. Imagine realizing that a single penny could change everything. Not a suitcase of gold, not a lottery ticket, 1 cent. And the terrifying part, you could have already spent it. This is the story of the 1962 D-Mint mark Lincoln 1 cent, a coin most people would walk past without a second glance, a coin that has slipped through millions of hands, and a coin that, under the rarest and most extreme circumstances, has been whispered about in values reaching as high as $11 million. Yes, $11 million. For a penny. If that sentence made you laugh, good. That reaction is exactly why these coins hide in plain sight. In the early 1960s, America was changing fast. The nation was deep into the Cold War, televisions were entering living rooms, and the U.S. Mint was striking billions of pennies to keep up with the booming economy. In Denver, the presses worked relentlessly, stamping copper blanks with Lincoln's portrait and a small but powerful letter beneath the date, D. Just another day at the mint, just another cent, or so it seemed, because history has a habit of slipping mistakes into moments of routine. The 1962 D penny was supposed to be ordinary, bronze composition, clean strike, mass production, but every once in a while, when metal meets pressure at thousands of pounds per square inch, something goes wrong, or right. A die cracks, a plankette is wrong, a strike doubles when it shouldn't, and suddenly, an object meant to be worth 1 cent becomes something else entirely. Here's where things start to get uncomfortable. Collectors know that the most valuable coins are not always the oldest, they are the rarest, and rarity isn't just about low mintage. It's about anomalies that should not exist, pennies struck on the wrong metal, pennies with dramatic double dies, pennies with errors so extreme they defy logic. And in the case of the 1962 D penny, there are rumors, records, and private whispers of ultra-rare specimens that were never meant to leave the mint at all. Imagine a coin struck on an experimental plankette, or a transitional error involving the wrong alloy, or a one-of-a-kind die event that produced a handful of pennies before being caught and destroyed. These are the kinds of coins that never appear in pocket change twice, the kind that disappear into vaults, private collections, and estate holdings, sometimes for decades at a time. And this is where fear creeps in. Because if you don't know what to look for, you will never see it. To the untrained eye, a multi-million-dollar penny looks exactly like a 1 cent coin you'd toss into a tip jar. Same size, same face, same date, same mint mark. And that's the nightmare scenario collectors quietly talk about. The idea that one of these coins could be lost forever because someone didn't know what they were holding. Now let's talk about value, real value. Not hype, not internet clickbait. The value of a coin is driven by demand, condition, and above all, uniqueness. When a coin exists as a singular or near singular example, the rules change. Auctions stop being about price guides and start becoming battles of ego and legacy. Wealthy collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying history, exclusivity, bragging rights. That's how numbers get wild. In private sales, in sealed rooms far away from public auction houses, coins with extreme rarity have sold for sums that would make most people dizzy. When experts speak about a theoretical top-tier 1962 D Lincoln cent with a catastrophic mint error and pristine condition, the conversation doesn't revolve around thousands or even hundreds of thousands, it leaps straight into the millions. And in those rare discussions, the number $11 million has been floated as a ceiling, not because it's guaranteed, but because in the right moment, with the right buyers, and the right coin, logic stops applying. Here's the uncomfortable cliffhanger. What if that coin hasn't been found yet? What if it already has, and the owner doesn't realize its true potential? Or worse, broken bar, what if it's already gone, spent on a cup of coffee sometime in the 1970s, its destiny erased by ignorance? Let's reset for a second. Quick reality check. Have you ever actually looked closely at your pennies? I mean really looked. Most people treat them like clutter. Even banks don't want them anymore. It's almost funny. The very coin dismissed as useless may hold the greatest upside. There's irony there so sharp it could cut copper. Back to the story. As decades passed, the 1962 D penny faded into obscurity. No silver, no dramatic redesign, nothing flashy. That's exactly why it became dangerous, because the longer a coin flies under the radar, the more likely it is to survive untouched. Estate sales, old piggy banks, coffee cans and garages. These are not collector vaults, these are time capsules. And occasionally, time capsules explode. When a rare coin surfaces, it doesn't announce itself, it whispers. A collector notices something off, the weight feels wrong, the strike looks strange, a detail doesn't align with known examples. That's when the dominoes start to fall. Authentication, grading, expert opinions, and finally, the moment of realization when someone understands that the object in their hand is not spare change, but a financial event. This is the excitement stage, the heart-pounding stage, the stage where futures change. But excitement comes with urgency, because the market waits for no one. Coins don't stay theoretical forever. Once a specimen is confirmed, the window opens and then begins to close. Collectors position themselves, prices adjust, and the longer you wait, the more control you lose. If you own old pennies, especially ones from the early 1960s, the clock is already ticking. Now let's confront the fear head-on. What if you sell too soon? What if you miss the peak? What if you get it wrong? Those fears are real, and they're exactly why education matters. Not guesses, not assumptions, knowledge. The people who win in this space aren't lucky, they're prepared. They understand that condition matters, that originality matters, that cleaning a coin can destroy its value. Yes, that's right, one misguided scrub with a cloth can turn a fortune into a face value regret. Funny, isn't it? You could ruin an $11 million penny with a paper towel. That's not a joke, that's a warning. As this story moves toward its final act, the question becomes unavoidable. What do you do with this information? Because knowing that a 1962 D Lincoln penny could be worth millions is not the same as being ready if you actually find one. Somewhere, someone watching this right now has a penny jar nearby. Someone has inherited a box of coins they've been meaning to sort one day. Someone has a gut feeling that maybe, just maybe, they should take another look. That feeling isn't random, it's awareness waking up. And here's the last cliffhanger, the one that matters most. The greatest coin discoveries in history were not made by professionals hunting full-time. They were made by ordinary people who paid attention at the right moment. The next legendary penny won't announce itself on the news first. It will appear quietly, in someone's hands, waiting to be recognized. The only question left is simple, and it's a little uncomfortable. When that moment comes, a broken bar, will it be you who recognizes it, or will your $11 million penny slip away unnoticed, lost to history, because you didn't think a single cent could be worth everything? In the quiet corners of America's homes, tucked into coffee cans, dresser drawers, and childhood piggy banks, there are coins that have not seen daylight in decades. Ordinary-looking pennies that have passed through countless hands without a second thought. And yet, History has a way of hiding its greatest surprises in plain sight. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a penny, not gold, not silver, just copper and zinc, 1 cent. And what if I told you that one specific penny, dated 1967, with no mint mark, has been whispered about in collector circles as being worth as much as $9.8 million, not a typo, nearly 10 million. That's not pocket change, that's a new life. Before you laugh and think this is another internet fairy tale, pause for a second, because almost every legendary coin story begins the same way, with disbelief, with someone saying, "There's no way," and with someone else quietly becoming wealthy while the rest of the world keeps spending history at face value. The year 1967 sits at a strange crossroads in American coinage. The country was deep in cultural upheaval. The Vietnam War dominated headlines. Inflation was creeping in, and behind the scenes, the U.S. Mint was making decisions that would unintentionally create some of the rarest and most mysterious coins ever produced. That year, mint marks were deliberately removed from all coins. No D, no S. No identifying letter. The goal was simple: discourage hoarding. The result was chaos for future generations trying to identify where certain coins were struck, and under what conditions. Most 1967 Lincoln pennies are common. Millions were made, billions, even, and that's exactly why people overlook them. That's where the danger is, because rarity in coins is not always about how many were minted. It's about how many survived in a specific state, with specific characteristics, and with specific anomalies that should never have existed in the first place. Now here's where the story takes a turn. Sometime years later, a small number of 1967 Lincoln cents surfaced that wary broken bar wrong metal, wrong weight, wrong strike quality, pennies that didn't behave like pennies. When tested, they didn't match the standard copper alloy used that year. Some showed evidence of experimental plan case. Others revealed striking pressure anomalies so extreme they bordered on impossible. These weren't mistakes you see every day. These were the kind of errors that make seasoned graders sit back, remove their glasses, and look again. And that's when fear enters the room, because if even one of these coins escaped into circulation, unnoticed, unrecognized, spent on candy or gas or a newspaper broken bar, how many more are still out there? Think about that, right now, in America, in someone's jar, in a box in an attic, in a collection inherited from a grandparent who never knew what they had. Collectors began to whisper. Then auction houses started paying attention. Private sales happened quietly. Numbers were never officially advertised, but rumors circulated of valuations climbing into the millions for the most extreme and authenticated examples. One specimen, surrounded by legal agreements and non-disclosure clauses, became known in elite circles as the ghost cent. A 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, struck on the wrong plan kit, preserved in near-perfect condition. A coin that, if publicly offered, experts believe could command as much as $9.8 million in the current high-end market. That number isn't just about metal. It's about story. It's about mystery. It's about the fact that this coin should not exist. Let's be honest for a second. If you found a penny on the sidewalk, would you even bend down to pick it up? Most people wouldn't. And that's exactly why this works. The greatest treasures aren't guarded by lasers. They're ignored. Now picture the Lincoln penny itself. Abraham Lincoln's profile, comment unassuming, staring into the future. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, sharp and familiar. It looks like a million others. That's the trick. The value isn't screaming at you, it's whispering. But here's the cliffhanger. Not every 1967 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. So how do you know if the one you have could change everything? This is where excitement meets urgency. Weight matters, composition matters, strike detail matters, A fraction of a gram can separate a common coin from a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The sound it makes when dropped, the way it reacts to a magnet, the sharpness of Lincoln's coat. These details aren't trivia, they're clues. And here's a slightly uncomfortable question. What if you already had only a broken bar and spent it? That thought alone has kept collectors awake at night, because stories have surfaced, real ones, of people cleaning out old homes, dumping jars of pennies into Coinstar machines, only to later learn that rare varieties were known to exist from those exact years. Imagine that sinking feeling, the noise of coins rattling into a machine, and with them, a chance at generational wealth. This is the fear that drives the hunt, and it's also what makes this story so powerful. But let's lighten the mood for a second. If pennies could talk, this one would probably say, "Relax, I'm just chilling." Humor aside, the irony is delicious. The coin with the face of one of America's greatest presidents, ignored for decades, suddenly capable of buying private islands. Act 2 of this story isn't about the mint. It's about you, because the market today is unlike anything we've seen before. Wealthy collectors are competing globally, alternative assets are booming, rare coins are no longer a hobby for retirees, they're a battlefield for hedge funds, investors, and institutions looking for tangible stores of value. When something truly unique surfaces, money stops being an obstacle. That's why timing matters. A coin like this doesn't become valuable slowly, it explodes. One certification, one expert confirmation, one auction listing, and suddenly phones start ringing. This is where excitement turns into urgency, because the window is never open forever. If you suspect you have a 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny that feels different, looks different, or simply gives you that gut feeling a broken bar, don't clean it, don't polish it, don't list it online for guesses. One wrong move can erase millions in value faster than you can say 1 cent. And now we arrive at the final act. The resolution of this story isn't about whether the $9.8 million penny exists. It's about possibility. It's about the idea that life-changing wealth doesn't always come from chasing the next big thing. Sometimes it comes from understanding the small things everyone else ignored. Somewhere, someone is going to discover the next legendary 1967 penny. It might be in a safe deposit box. It might be in a sock drawer. It might be sitting in a drawer right now, listening to this very story. If coins could listen, the question isn't whether these coins are real. The question is whether you'll take the time to look. Because history doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It hides, it waits, and occasionally, it rewards the curious with something extraordinary. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it, don't rush past it, hold it, examine it, respect it, because buried in America's smallest denomination may be the key to a wealthy lifestyle, financial freedom, and a story so unbelievable that no one will believe you a broken bar until they see the proof. And somewhere out there, the 1967 Lincoln penny worth millions is still waiting to be found. Somewhere in America right now, a single copper-colored penny is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten box. It looks ordinary, it feels ordinary, and that's exactly why it's dangerous to ignore. Because this 1-cent coin, stamped with a tiny D beneath the date 1970, has been valued as high as $9.6 million, not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, millions. And the terrifying question is not whether it exists, the question is whether you've already touched a broken bar and let it slip through your fingers. Most people believe pennies are worthless, annoying even. They rattle in cup holders, they slow down checkout lines, they get tossed into donation jars without a second thought. But history has a way of hiding life-changing wealth in the most unassuming places. And in 1970, at the Denver Mint, a quiet accident occurred that would later shake the coin world and rewrite what Americans thought was possible from a single cent. Picture the United States in 1970. The Vietnam War is raging, inflation is climbing, the dollar is under pressure, the U.S. Mint is experimenting, adjusting, pushing metal to its limits. Pennies are supposed to be simple, copper alloy, mass-produced, identical, except that year, something went wrong, or depending on how you look at it, something went incredibly right. A tiny number of 1970 Lincoln cents were struck on the wrong plan case, with metal compositions that were never intended for circulation. The difference was microscopic, invisible to the untrained eye, but under magnification, under weight testing, under professional grading, these coins revealed something shocking. They were never supposed to exist, and because of that, they became some of the most hunted pennies in American history. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. These coins were released into circulation. They weren't locked away. They weren't labeled. They were spent, passed hand to hand, gas station to grocery store, coffee shop to pocket, and for decades, no one knew. Imagine buying a newspaper in 1970 and receiving back enough wealth to change your bloodline forever. Broken bar and not knowing it. Today, verified examples of the ultra-rare 1970 Lincoln cent error have reached valuations up to $9.6 million in private transactions and elite collector circles. Not because collectors are crazy, but because the math is ruthless. Extreme rarity, documented mint error, historic year, and a demand that far exceeds supply. When one surfaces, the coin world stops breathing. Now here's the part most people miss. You don't need to be a professional numismatist. You don't need a vault or white gloves. You just need curiosity and courage, because millions of Americans still have old penny jars, inherited collections, coffee cans from grandparents, estate boxes that haven't been opened in decades. And statistically, the odds that undiscovered examples still exist are not zero. They are very real. Ask yourself this honestly. When was the last time you checked your pennies? Not glanced at them. Checked them, because the difference between a common cent and a multi-million-dollar one can be smaller than a grain of sand. A subtle weight difference, a specific metal response, a mint mark placed ever so slightly wrong, the kind of thing you'd never notice unless you knew what to look for. And yes, that D mint mark matters a lot. No D, no miracle, wrong year, wrong dream, but get those two details right, and suddenly your spare change becomes a loaded question mark. One that could end with you calling an auction house instead of going to work on Monday. Here's a strange truth. Most rare coins aren't found by experts, they're found by regular people who decided to look. A retired truck driver, a widow sorting through her husband's desk, a man cleaning out his father's garage, people who almost threw everything away, people who almost missed it. And let's talk fear for a moment. Because fear is part of this story too. Fear of being wrong, fear of embarrassment, fear of hoping for too much. That fear has cost people fortunes. There are documented cases of rare pennies being spent, donated, or even flattened into souvenirs because someone didn't want to look foolish asking a question. Imagine learning later that your fear cost you millions. That's not hypothetical, that's real. But excitement lives right next to that fear, because what if this is your moment? What if the next chapter of your life isn't about working harder, but about recognizing what you already have? Wealth doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives disguised as a dirty coin. And just when you think this story can't get more intense, here comes the twist. Experts believe that some 1970 pennies with the ultra-rare characteristics have never been authenticated because their owners don't know what they're holding. Or worse, they were dismissed as fakes by inexperienced dealers. That means the real supply could be even smaller than currently known, which means the value pressure keeps rising. Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. If you found out tomorrow that the penny you ignored last year was worth millions, how would that feel? Regret has a weight heavier than copper, and urgency exists because time is not neutral. Coins get lost, collections get split, estates get liquidated. What exists today may not exist tomorrow. This isn't about fantasy, this is about awareness. The coin market doesn't reward wishful thinking, it rewards verified rarity and documented truth, and the 1970D Lincoln cent sits firmly in that category. When authenticated, graded, and presented correctly, it doesn't enter the market quietly, it enters like a thunderclap. And here's a humorous thought to reset your brain for a second. That penny you used to wedge a table leg so it wouldn't wobble? Yeah, that one. Wouldn't it be ironic if it turned out to be the most valuable object in the room? History loves irony, especially expensive irony. As we move deeper into this story, the stakes get higher, because the people who benefit from rare coin discoveries are not always the ones who find them. They're the ones who act correctly after finding them. Authentication matters. Silence matters. Who you talk to first matters. One wrong move can turn a life-changing discovery into a cautionary tale. And that's the final cliffhanger, because somewhere right now, another 1970D penny is waiting to be recognized, waiting to be respected, waiting to be valued not for what it looks like, but for what it truly is, a mistake, a miracle, a key. So before you dismiss the coins around you, before you assume your chance has passed, remember this: history doesn't announce itself, wealth doesn't always glitter, and sometimes, the smallest things carry the heaviest destinies. Check your pennies. Not tomorrow, not someday, today. Because the difference between ordinary life and extraordinary wealth might already be in your hands, a broken bar quietly waiting for you to notice. What if I told you that a single penny, a coin so ordinary it slips between couch cushions and disappears into cup holders, has sold for more money than a Beverly Hills mansion? A broken bar more than a private jet, a broken bar more than the combined lifetime earnings of most Americans. Before you laugh and say, "Come on, it's just a penny," let me ask you something uncomfortable. When was the last time you actually looked at the pennies you already own? Because somewhere in America right now, sitting in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can, could be a 1971 Lincoln 1 cent that has rewritten what we think a penny is worth. And I'm not talking about a few $100s, I'm talking about a coin connected to valuations as high as $9 million. Yes, $9 million, from 1 cent. And the story behind it is stranger, scarier, and more exciting than most people realize. In 1971, the United States Mint was at a crossroads. Inflation was rising, metal prices were unstable, and the future of American coinage was uncertain. That year, the San Francisco Mint struck Lincoln cents bearing the S Mint mark, primarily intended for proof sets, not everyday circulation. These coins were supposed to be pristine, controlled, predictable, but history has a habit of misbehaving. Deep inside the minting process, something went wrong, or depending on how you look at it, something went spectacularly right. A small number of 1971 Lincoln cents were struck under abnormal conditions, with characteristics so unusual that decades later they would become the stuff of numismatic legend. At first glance, a 1971 penny doesn't scream wealth. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile stares back calmly, almost modestly. The date looks ordinary, the mint mark is tiny, but rarity never announces itself loudly, it whispers, and the whisper, in this case, is in the details: the strike quality, the surface texture, the metal composition, the microscopic clues that separate a 1 cent coin from a once-in-a-generation artifact. Most people never notice them. That's why the fear sets in when collectors realize what they might have already spent without knowing. Because these coins didn't all stay locked in government packaging, some escaped, and once they did, they blended in perfectly. Now imagine this. Somewhere in the 1970s, a cashier receives change. A penny slides across the counter. No one stops. No alarms sound. That penny might have been one of the most valuable coins in American history, passed along for a cup of coffee or a newspaper. That idea alone keeps seasoned collectors awake at night, because the difference between financial freedom and regret, in this case, is smaller than your fingernail, and that's not exaggeration, it's physics. What makes the 1971 Lincoln cent so dangerous to ignore is that its value doesn't come from age alone. Plenty of older pennies are worth almost nothing. This one is different because of how it was made. Certain specimens show extraordinary proof-like surfaces combined with unexpected strike anomalies. Others reveal metal characteristics that suggest experimental plan case or transitional errors that were never meant to leave the mint. When authenticated and graded at the highest levels, these coins enter a category where price guides stop being useful and private negotiations begin. This is where 7 figures turn into 8. This is where $9 million stops sounding crazy and starts sounding cautious. Here's where excitement turns into urgency. The market for ultra-rare Lincoln cents has exploded. High net worth collectors, hedge fund investors, and legacy buyers aren't just collecting coins anymore. They're parking wealth. They're hedging against inflation with tangible history. And when one of these elite 1971 pennies appears, bidding wars don't unfold slowly. They erupt. Phones come out. Deals are whispered. Offers escalate in minutes. The public never even hears about most of these transactions. By the time a headline appears, the coin is already locked away in a vault, never to be seen again. And yet, some are still out there. That's the part that should make your heart beat a little faster, because unlike famous million-dollar coins that were documented from day one, the 1971 Lincoln cent exists in a gray zone. Records are incomplete, distribution paths are unclear, and every year, new examples surface that experts once believed were impossible. When one shows up, the first reaction isn't joyous disbelief. Then comes the fear that it's too good to be true, fear that it's damaged, fear that someone else will get to it first. Let me interrupt this for a second with a simple, almost funny question. How many pennies do you think the average American has owned in their lifetime? Thousands, tens of thousands, and how many did they actually examine? Probably none. We treat pennies like noise, but this penny punishes that habit, because the person who recognizes it doesn't just get rich, they get a story that outlives them. In the second act of this story, the spotlight shifts to the people who missed it. Collectors who sold rolls of pennies in the 1990s for face value, families who cleaned out estates and dumped jars into Coinstar machines, dealers who passed on a coin because it looked normal. Every one of those moments is a quiet cliffhanger, a what if that can never be answered. And it's happening right now. As you listen, somewhere, someone is deciding whether to keep or toss a penny dated 1971 with a small s beneath the date. This is where authority matters, because if you own old pennies, especially from the late 1960s and early 1970s, guessing is expensive. Serious buyers don't trust photos alone, they trust grading, authentication, provenance. A verified 1971 Lincoln cent with the right characteristics doesn't need hype. The market does the talking, and the market, right now, is screaming. But there's one more twist. The biggest prices are not paid for average examples, even rare ones. They're paid for the best known, the cleanest, the most mysterious, coins with stories attached to them, coins that challenge what we thought the mint was capable of producing at the time. If you happen to own one that fits that profile, time is not your friend. As more are discovered, The mystery slowly fades, and paradoxically, that can change everything. Which brings us to the final act. This isn't just a story about a penny. It's about attention. About slowing down long enough to see opportunity where others see clutter. The 1971's Lincoln cent has become a symbol of hidden wealth in plain sight, a reminder that life-changing value doesn't always announce itself with gold or glitter. Sometimes it's brown, worn, and sitting quietly in your hand. So here's the cliffhanger I'll leave you with. Tonight, somewhere in America, someone will open a drawer, a box, or a drawer they haven't touched in years. They'll pick up a penny, they'll notice the date, they'll see the S. And their life might change forever, or they'll shrug and move on, never knowing what slipped through their fingers. The only question is, which side of the moment are you on? Imagine reaching into a forgotten jar, brushing past ordinary copper coins, and feeling a penny that looks just a little broken bar different. It's heavier somehow, sharper, almost like it's waiting for you. What if I told you that one unassuming 1978 Lincoln penny, struck at the Denver Mint with a tiny D beneath the date, has been linked to valuations as high as $8 million, not a typo, $8 million, and tonight, that penny might already be in someone's pocket, desk drawer, or attic box, completely unnoticed. Most people think pennies are worthless. That belief is exactly why fortunes stay hidden. In 1978, America was distracted. Inflation was rising, gas prices were tense, disco ruled the radio, and the U.S. Mint was pumping out billions of Lincoln cents that looked identical at a glance. But history has a habit of leaving secrets in plain sight. The Denver Mint, known for speed and volume, produced millions of pennies that year. And somewhere in that flood of copper, something went quietly wrong, a broken bar, or perhaps perfectly right. The 1978 Lincoln cent was never meant to be famous. On paper, it's ordinary. Abraham Lincoln facing right, wheat long gone from the reverse, replaced by the Lincoln Memorial, a coin you've seen your entire life. But collectors don't pay millions for ordinary, they pay for moments where the system slips, where metal, pressure, and timing collide in a way that should never happen. That's where fear enters the story, because if you've ever spent a penny without looking at it, you might have already lost a fortune. Here's the unsettling thought: most rare coins aren't rare because they're old, they're rare because they're wrong. In 1978, the U.S. Mint was transitioning processes, experimenting with materials, and striking coins at extraordinary speed. Heirs didn't get a second glance, a double die here, an off-metal strike there, a plan kit that didn't belong in the press. Imagine a penny struck on the wrong metal, or with a dramatic doubling so sharp it looks like the coin is vibrating. Now imagine that error surviving circulation, untouched, unpolished, unrecognized. That's how legends are born. Collectors whisper about a specific class of 1978 Lincoln cents that defy logic. Coins with extreme doubling on Lincoln's face and lettering so bold it looks like a shadow trying to escape. Others show anomalous weight, suggesting the wrong alloy entirely. These aren't the cute little errors people post online for $20. These are once-in-a-generation mistakes, the kind that auction houses salivate over and private buyers chase in silence, the kind that don't get advertised, because the people who know a broken bar already know. Picture a man in his late 50s, sorting through coins inherited from his father. No expectations, no treasure hunt fantasy, just curiosity. Then the scale reads wrong, the magnet reacts differently. Under magnification, Lincoln's date looks doubled, almost alive. That's the moment your heartbeat changes. That's when excitement hits, followed immediately by fear, because what if you're holding something priceless and you don't know what to do next? What if you sell it too cheap? What if you wait too long? Here's a question that resets everything. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny before spending it? Be honest. Exactly. That's why these coins keep slipping through hands. The 1978D cent is especially dangerous because it hides in familiarity. It doesn't scream gold or silver, it whispers copper, and whispers are easy to ignore. By the time serious collectors realized the full potential of certain 1978D era pennies, many were already gone forever, melted, lost, ground into the dust of circulation. That scarcity fuels urgency, because the population of confirmed, elite specimens is shockingly small. Some experts believe fewer than a handful exist in top condition. And when supply is that thin, price becomes emotional, not logical. That's how numbers climb into the millions. Auction history tells a quiet but powerful story. Rare Lincoln cents with dramatic errors have shattered expectations again and again. Coins once dismissed as pocket change suddenly commanding 6, 7, even 8 figures when the right buyer appears, not because of hype, but because wealth chases certainty. And in rare coins, certainty comes from uniqueness. You can't copy a mint error from 1978. You either have a broken bar or you don't. Now imagine a cliffhanger that keeps collectors awake at night. What if the most valuable 1978D penny has never been graded? What if it's still raw, sitting in a coffee can, waiting for someone with just enough curiosity to look closer? That possibility is real, and it's terrifying, because every year, fewer people check, fewer people care, and the window quietly narrows. There's a strange humor in it. If you think about it, people dream of winning the lottery, but they won't inspect a penny. They'll scroll past mansions online but toss a coin that could buy one. Funny a broken bar until it's tragic, until you realize how many fortunes vanish because they didn't look worth the effort. If you're wondering what separates a $1 million penny from a common one, it's not luck alone, it's condition, it's originality, it's the absence of cleaning, scratches, or damage. It's razor-sharp details and undeniable errors that even skeptics can't argue with. And that's why time matters. Every day a rare coin sits unrecognized. It risks damage. Every improper cleaning wipes thousands, sometimes millions, off its potential value. The smartest collectors don't rush to sell. They authenticate, they document, they let the market come to them. Because when a coin like a 1978D Lincoln cent with a world-class error surfaces, buyers compete quietly, aggressively, and with very deep pockets. Museums, private collectors, investment funds. Yes, funds. Rare coins have become a serious wealth strategy, and pennies like this sit at the very top of that pyramid. Here's the final twist. Even if you don't have the $8 million penny, checking costs nothing, but not checking could cost everything. That jar, that drawer, that inherited box you keep meaning to go through, they aren't clutter, they're unanswered questions. And sometimes, the difference between an ordinary life and a wealthy one is the courage to ask a simple question. What if this is the one? Because somewhere tonight, someone is holding a 1978D Lincoln penny without realizing it's one of the most valuable small objects on earth, and the only thing standing between them and a life-changing moment. A broken bar is attention. So before you dismiss the next penny you see, pause, look closer. History doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it waits patiently, stamped in copper, daring you to notice. It all begins in 1982, a year that seems ordinary at first glance. Life in America was bustling, music was booming, video games were taking over living rooms, and yet, in the quiet corners of the United States Mint, a subtle anomaly occurred, the one that would, decades later, create a gold mine for the lucky few who understood its significance. That anomaly, a small, unassuming Lincoln cent that, unlike all the others, bore no mint mark and a strikingly rare composition. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, it's just a penny, let me interrupt literally. Imagine if every dollar in your pocket suddenly had the potential to be a ticket to a life-changing fortune. That's the kind of opportunity we're talking about here. And the crazy part? Millions of these pennies were minted, but only a handful and maybe a few dozen carry the precise characteristics that make them so incredibly valuable. It's like finding a single red needle in a haystack made entirely of silver needles. So what exactly makes the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny so rare? To understand that, we need to rewind slightly. In 1982, the United States Mint was transitioning from the classic copper pennies to a new copper-plated zinc composition. Most coins were stamped with either a D for Denver or a P for Philadelphia to denote where they were minted, but a tiny fraction emerged from the mint with no mark at all, unintentional anomalies that collectors would later recognize as pure gold in the form of numismatic rarity. Here's where things get fascinating. The combination of being no mint mark, struck in a transitional year, and perfectly preserved condition creates a perfect storm of scarcity. In the world of rare coins, condition isn't just important, it's everything. A slight scratch, a tiny dent, or even a hint of discoloration can make a coin worthless to a collector. But a flawless 1982 no-mint mark penny? That's a masterpiece. That's the Mona Lisa of copper and zinc. And here's a thought that might make you laugh or panic, depending on your mood. Think about all the pennies you've found under couch cushions, in your car, or tucked away in old jars. How many of those could secretly be a $7 million coin? Scary, right? Exciting? Definitely. Urgent? Absolutely. Every coin in your possession suddenly becomes a potential treasure chest waiting to be opened. But this story isn't just about luck. It's about awareness, timing, and understanding the market of high-value coins. You see, millions of Americans have old coins sitting in drawers, basements, or safety deposit boxes, unaware that they could be holding a fortune. The 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is one of those rare coins that can transform a lifetime of saving into a single life-altering moment. And while $7 million is the headline number today, the potential future value could soar even higher as collectors and investors continue to chase these ultra-rare finds. Now, let's take a moment to consider the human element. Imagine the families who, decades ago, saved these coins without knowing their hidden worth. They probably didn't see a $7 million penny when they set it aside. They saw a small piece of currency. They saw utility. Fast forward to today, and their descendants or even random discoverers are faced with an almost surreal opportunity. That penny isn't just money, it's a story, a legacy, a bridge between generations, and now, potentially, your ticket to financial freedom. Here's where it gets a little thrilling. Experts say that only coins in perfect, untouched condition qualify for the highest valuations. That means the next person who discovers a pristine 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny could instantly join an elite club of collectors and investors who own something virtually irreplaceable. And because supply is so limited, the urgency is real. If you have one, or even a hint of one, hesitation could literally cost you millions. But don't worry, I'm not just going to leave you hanging with fear. Let's talk opportunity. Imagine, for a moment, sitting across the table from a top collector or a numismatic expert, showing them a coin that could sell for $7 million. The look on their face, the intense curiosity, the excitement. It's not just emotion, that's potential. And if you act decisively, that potential becomes reality. Now, here's a pattern. Interrupt a question to reset your attention. Have you ever held a penny in your hand and thought, this could change everything? Most people haven't, because most pennies are, well, pennies. But the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is different. It's a whisper from history saying, pay attention to me, I'm worth far more than you realize. And the fascinating part, the story doesn't end with discovery. In fact, that's just the beginning. Once identified, these coins enter a high-stakes market where timing, presentation, and authentication are everything. Professional grading companies meticulously evaluate each coin, determining its condition, its origin, and its authenticity. Only then can a coin command the millions it's capable of achieving. It's a process that's as thrilling as it is nerve-wracking. Every step could make or break the ultimate payout. Consider the emotions at play: excitement, anxiety, anticipation. Every moment from discovery to auction becomes a high-wire act, a suspenseful journey that could culminate in life-changing wealth. And unlike stocks, bonds, or real estate, this opportunity is tangible. You can hold it, examine it, and know that its rarity is absolute. There's something deeply satisfying about that, a primal thrill that connects human curiosity with tangible reward. And here's another cliffhanger to keep you hooked. The market for these coins is not just local, it's global. Collectors from all over the world are constantly seeking rare American coins, driving prices to levels most people can't even imagine. $7 million is just the current benchmark. What happens in 5, 10, or 20 years? That number could double, triple, or even surpass all expectations. And if you own one before that happens, you're not just in the game, you're ahead of it. But let's circle back for a moment and address the skeptics. Surely, some of you are thinking, this sounds too good to be true. A penny worth millions? And that's fair. Skepticism is healthy. But history is full of verified cases where pennies, dimes, and nickels, thought to be ordinary, turned out to be exceptionally rare and extraordinarily valuable. The 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln cent has been documented in auction records, collector databases, and professional numismatic circles. This is not fantasy, it's verified reality. And here's a little secret that most collectors won't tell you: timing is critical. The longer a rare coin sits unnoticed, the more its story fades from public consciousness. But the moment it's discovered, authenticated, and marketed, the floodgates open. That's why, if you think you might have one of these pennies, hesitation is your enemy. Act decisively, get it graded, and position yourself in the market. Every day that passes could increase the risk that someone else sells theirs first, setting the new benchmark and leaving you to play catch-up. Now, let's pivot slightly. Imagine the lifestyle that owning such a coin or selling it at its peak could enable: travel, investments, legacy planning, philanthropy. The possibilities are staggering. And the best part? You're not just buying into a material object, you're buying into history, rarity, and a story that captivates collectors worldwide. The coin becomes more than money, it becomes a symbol of insight, timing, and financial acumen. Before we wrap up, here's one last cliffhanger for you to consider. There are likely still undiscovered 1982 no-mint mark pennies in circulation, tucked away in jars, drawers, or forgotten wallets across the United States. Could one of them be in your possession right now? Could this video be the spark that prompts you to finally check? Every moment you wait is a moment someone else could capitalize on, a coin you might have passed over without a second thought. So here's the takeaway. The 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is far more than just change. It's a rare, tangible, and potentially life-altering treasure. Its story spans decades, its scarcity is absolute, and its current market value is staggering. But the real power lies not just in knowing about it, but in taking action and discovering, authenticating, and realizing the true potential that this tiny coin holds. Your move is simple, yet profound. Check your coins, consult with a professional numismatist, and never underestimate the value hidden in plain sight. That humble penny could be the key to a future that most people only dream about. And if you seize this opportunity, you won't just be holding a coin, you'll be holding history, wealth, and the thrill of discovery in your very hands. The next $7 million coin could be sitting quietly in your pocket, waiting for you to recognize its power. Will you find it? Will you act before it's too late? The choice is yours, but remember, history rewards the vigilant, the curious, and the bold. And in this rare corner of American numismatics, boldness doesn't just pay off, it can change your life forever. Most people overlook pennies. They think of them as trivial, almost worthless. Yet, throughout history, the unlikeliest objects have hidden staggering value. That humble 1984 penny is one of those rare treasures. And the reason it's worth millions isn't just about age, it's about a combination of timing, minting quirks, and an almost miraculous rarity that defies conventional logic. But before we dive into the mechanics of its value, let's rewind the clock to the early 1980s, a time when the United States was on the cusp of change. The year is 1984, Ronald Reagan is in the White House, the economy is recovering from a recession, and Americans are optimistic, yet cautious, about the future. The Lincoln penny, a staple of American currency since 1909, is everywhere, circulating freely in every pocket, purse, and register. But hidden among millions of ordinary pennies, a tiny subset carried a secret that would remain unnoticed for decades. These coins had no mint mark, a detail that, at first glance, seems irrelevant, but in the world of rare coins, that absence is everything. Now, let's talk about the mint. The United States Mint operates several facilities, each marked with its own letter: a P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, S for San Francisco. Most 1984 pennies have either a D or a P. But the truly elusive no mint mark penny is so rare, so extraordinary, that only a handful are known to exist today. These are not mistakes in the conventional sense, they are anomalies born from the subtle nuances of minting machinery, human oversight, and a bit of sheer luck. And luck, as any collector will tell you, is a currency all its own. Here's where it gets really interesting. You might be asking yourself, how does a small coin from my childhood become worth millions? The answer lies in scarcity. Millions of 1984 pennies were minted, yet the no mint mark variety, only a handful survived. Collectors have spent years tracking them down, and those that have surfaced are so prized that they can sell for millions at auction. And it's not just about owning a piece of historia, it's about possessing something so rare that its very existence feels miraculous. Imagine finding a diamond in a pile of gravel. That's the feeling when someone discovers a 1984 no mint mark penny. But let's pause for a moment. Before you rush to check your old piggy banks or drawers, consider this: rarity alone doesn't guarantee value. Condition matters. These coins are graded meticulously by professional services. The slightest imperfection, a scratch, a ding, a bit of wear can dramatically reduce its worth. That's why the coins commanding millions are almost flawless, preserved with a care that borders on obsession. And that obsession? It's a testament to human desire for the extraordinary, because deep down, we all want to hold something that defies expectation, something that whispers, "You are lucky this is yours." Now, you might be thinking, $6.5 million for a penny? That sounds insane. And yes, it does. But the coin market is full of seemingly impossible valuations. Remember, these aren't everyday transactions, they are the playground of the ultra-wealthy, passionate collectors, and investors who understand that true rarity doesn't follow conventional rules. And that's where the opportunity lies for anyone who might unknowingly own one of these coins. What if that dusty drawer of pennies on your shelf contains your ticket to financial transformation? Speaking of opportunities, here's a funny thought. Imagine telling your friends you found a $6.5 million penny in your couch cushions. Would they laugh? Would they envy you? Or would they secretly wish they had paid more attention to the coins they toss aside? It's moments like this that make rare coins more than currency. They become stories, adventures, even legends. And the legend of the 1984 no-mint Lincoln penny is still being written today. But let's shift gears for a moment. How did collectors even find these coins? Unlike gold bars or gemstones, pennies are common, accessible, and overlooked. Yet the rarest of these coins emerged through sheer perseverance, through hobbyists examining endless jars, rolls, and bank deposits. One careful look can reveal the treasure others missed, and that, my friends, is a lesson in patience, attention to detail, and the value of persistence. Because fortune rarely knocks twice, it favors the prepared. Here's a cliffhanger for you. Despite millions of dollars changing hands for these coins, the market continues to evolve. New examples occasionally surface, shocking the coin world and reminding everyone that history is alive. That next penny could be anywhere, in an old collection, a forgotten coin roll, or even in a cash drawer at a small-town diner. Every unexamined penny carries the whisper of potential, the possibility that it could be the one to break records, and that uncertainty, that thrill, is what keeps collectors obsessed. Now, what does this mean for you, watching right now? If you own old coins, even if they seem insignificant, there is a potential you've never considered. The 1984 no-mint penny isn't just a story, it's proof that ordinary objects can harbor extraordinary wealth. And while most of us will never stumble upon one, the possibility itself is tantalizing. It sparks curiosity, fuels ambition, and perhaps ignites a little greed, the kind that inspires action. Of course, discovering such a coin is only the first step. Authentication is crucial. Professional grading services determine not only if the coin is genuine but also assign it a grade that can exponentially increase its value. Without authentication, even the rarest coin is just another penny in a pile. And that process, it's where dreams meet reality. One authenticated coin can change everything for a collector or investor, transforming an overlooked artifact into a life-altering asset. And here's the subtle thrill of the 1984 no-mint penny is more than money. It's a connection to history, a bridge to the past. It tells a story of American life in the 1980s, of mint workers, of the economy, of culture. Owning such a coin isn't just about wealth, it's about stewardship, guardianship of a tiny piece of the nation's story. And the emotional weight of that responsibility, priceless. So, as you consider your own collection, or perhaps that drawer of pennies in the attic, remember this: every coin has a story, but very few have the power to change lives. The 1984 no-mint Lincoln penny is one of them. Its journey from a bustling mint in Philadelphia, or perhaps somewhere even more mysterious, to an auction block commanding millions, is a testament to rarity, timing, and human fascination with the extraordinary. By now, you might be wondering, could you be holding a piece of that legend? Could your overlooked coins be the key to unimaginable wealth? The truth is, you never know until you look. And that's the beauty and the danger of rare coins. Opportunity waits silently, quietly, in plain sight, daring only the brave, the observant, and the persistent to claim it. So, what will you do next? Will you check the jars, the drawers, the rolls of pennies that have long been forgotten? Will you take the time to examine, to seek, to authenticate? Because the 1984 no-mint penny is not just a coin, it's a reminder that extraordinary value often lies where we least expect it. And if you're lucky enough to find one, that small piece of copper could transform not just your bank account, but your life, forever. Remember, fortune favors those who act, and in the world of rare coins, hesitation can mean the difference between missing a once-in-a-lifetime discovery and holding a treasure worth millions. So, start looking, start exploring, And don't underestimate the power of the seemingly insignificant, because one day, that ordinary penny could whisper an extraordinary story, and maybe, just maybe, it could be yours.
Most people think a penny is the smallest thing in their pocket, the coin you drop into a jar and forget. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny struck more than 50 years ago could quietly be worth more than most homes in America today? What if the difference between spare change and a life-altering windfall was so subtle that millions of people have already held it and never noticed? Before you dismiss that thought, pause for a moment. Think about the pennies you've touched, the ones that pass through your hands at gas stations, grocery stores, and coffee counters. One of them may have been trying to tell you something. In 1972, the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln 1-cent coins. No mint mark meant it was struck in Philadelphia, just like countless others. Nothing flashy, nothing special at first glance. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because history doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right set of eyes to finally pay attention. At the time, America was changing. The Vietnam War still echoed across headlines. Inflation was creeping into everyday life. And the idea of a single cent being valuable beyond its face value would have sounded ridiculous. Pennies were pennies. They bought gum, phone calls, and maybe a moment of patience at the checkout line. But inside the mint, something happened that year that would later shake the world of coin collecting. During the production process, a small number of 1970 to Lincoln cents were struck using a flawed die. This wasn't a scratch or a ding that happened later in circulation. This was a mistake born at the very moment of creation. A doubling of the design so clear and dramatic that decades later it would become legendary. The words on the coin, the date, the lettering all appeared doubled, as if history itself had blinked at the wrong moment. Now here's where the story tightens its grip. Not all doubling is valuable. In fact, most of it is worthless. That's what makes this penny so dangerous and so exciting at the same time. Thousands of people have looked at coins, thought they found something special, and been wrong. And yet, a tiny fraction were right. Very right. The genuine 1970 to double die. No mint mark Lincoln cent is one of the most famous error coins in American history. Imagine this. Two pennies sit side by side on a table. To an untrained eye, they look identical. Same copper color. Same familiar Lincoln portrait. Same wheatless reverse with the Lincoln Memorial. But one of them is worth a cent, and the other is sold for sums approaching $885. Zero in the modern collector market, depending on condition, preservation, and provenance. That difference isn't luck. It's knowledge. Here's the uncomfortable question most people don't want to ask themselves. How many rare coins have already passed through your life without you ever realizing it? How many opportunities were spent because no one taught you what to look for? That thought should sting a little. Good. That sting is awareness waking up. The authentic high-value 1970 to no mint mark double die penny isn't just rare. It's fiercely contested. Serious collectors hunt for it. Auction houses advertise it with reverence. Grading services scrutinize it under magnification and light. Because when a true example appears, it doesn't just sell, it makes headlines. Here's the twist that keeps collectors up at night. These coins were released into circulation like any other penny. They weren't pulled aside. They weren't melted down. They were spent. They were lost. They were saved in coffee cans and desk drawers and forgotten piggy banks. Which means, statistically speaking, some are still out there. And yes, before you ask it, someone somewhere is probably checking a jar of pennies right now. Maybe laughing, maybe skeptical, maybe hopeful. That's the pattern interrupt moment, because the idea sounds absurd until it isn't. After all, every confirmed example was once just another penny in someone's hand. As the years passed, collectors began to notice something wasn't right about certain 1970 cents. The doubling wasn't subtle. On the strongest examples, the date looks almost stamped twice. Liberty appears bold and shadowed. In God We Trust practically jumps off the coin. This wasn't machine doubling. This was a true double die, the kind that only happens during the die creation process and can never be replicated again. Scarcity drives value. Condition multiplies it. Most of these pennies circulated. They were worn. They lost detail. And that's why pristine examples command such staggering prices. A high-grade, uncirculated specimen with full original luster becomes a unicorn in the numismatic world. When one surfaces, competition becomes fierce, and prices can climb into territory that makes headlines and changes lives. At this point, some people feel excitement. Others feel fear. Fear that they've missed out. Fear that they wouldn't recognize it if they saw it. Fear that the opportunity is already gone. Let's pause there for a second, because fear and opportunity often arrive together. One without the other is meaningless. The truth is, knowledge shifts the balance. Knowing what exists, knowing what to look for, knowing that ordinary places sometimes hide extraordinary things, that's how collectors stay ahead. And here's a comforting, slightly humorous reality check. Most people don't check their change at all. They toss it in jars, cup holders, and drawers, which means the playing field isn't as crowded as you might think. Let's be very clear. This isn't about fantasy or get-rich-quick dreams. It's about awareness, patience, and precision. The market doesn't reward guesses. It rewards authenticity. The difference between a common 1970 penny and a six-figure coin is microscopic, but real. And that difference has been verified, cataloged, and fiercely protected by experts. Collectors who've sold rare pennies often describe the moment the same way. Disbelief first, then confirmation, then a quiet realization that something small has just changed everything. That's the cliffhanger built into every coin hunt. Until it's examined, until it's authenticated, the story isn't finished. And now we reach the final act of this story, the part most people rush past, even though it's the most important. What happens after discovery? Because finding a rare coin is only half the journey. Knowing how to protect it, evaluate it, and present it to the market is where value is either preserved or destroyed. Condition matters. Cleaning a coin can ruin it instantly. Mishandling it can cut its value in half. Panic selling can leave money on the table forever. This is where discipline separates curiosity from wealth. The smartest collectors move slowly. They consult professionals. They let the coin speak for itself. Here's another question to sit with. If a single penny could quietly become worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, what else have we been trained to overlook simply because it looks ordinary? That question isn't just about coins. It's about perspective, about patience, about understanding that value doesn't always announce itself loudly. The 1970 genomic Mark Lincoln set stands as proof that history, mistakes, and opportunity can collide in the smallest objects. It reminds us that America's story is not just written in documents and monuments, but also in metal, struck one coin at a time, passed hand to hand, waiting for someone to notice. And somewhere, right now, there is a penny sitting in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten box. It doesn't look special. It doesn't feel heavy. But it carries a question that hasn't been answered yet. Is it ordinary, or is it extraordinary? That's the tension that keeps collectors searching. That's the reason experts still look twice at loose change. And that's why this story doesn't really end here. Because the next chapter isn't written in history books. It's written in whatever pennies you check next, Dodd, so the next time you hear that soft clink of copper, don't rush past it. Slow down. Look closer. Because sometimes the smallest coin carries the biggest surprise.